Hey everybody, this is Kevin Daleen, and I'm excited to welcome you to my podcast called Shop Talk, where we're going to interview local entrepreneurs and community leaders to hopefully get actionable insights on how they've built their lives and their businesses that you, the audience, can take with them and hopefully implement into your life and your business. What's up, Z-Man?
What up, Kevin Dog?
Everybody knows you as Z, but your real name's Aziyah.
Yeah, that's kind of Z's the nickname everybody gave me when I first got here. So,
and I don't want to mispronounce your last name.
Guerrero.
Aziyah Guerrero.
Yeah, there we go.
You are, what I was referring to is the man behind the camera, but you're actually the face of our business, Daleen Restoration as well.
Yeah.
You're out in the community making our connections and helping grow our business. So,
yeah.
Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about what you do at Daleen, what your life is right now, and what you got going on?
Yeah, for sure. So I met Kevin in between jobs in my junior year of college at Whitewater. I was actually mopping the floors at Starbucks in Lake Geneva, and I noticed that everybody was either on their way to work or they were working in the cafe. And as, a student trying to get into business, I was like, let me try to market myself, kind of present myself to these people. And I'd gotten a few business cards, nothing really serious though. And then I ran into you, and you were like sketching ideas on a notepad or something. And I
look like I'm psychotic. I'm just over there scrambling notes.
Yeah, for sure. But then I was like, let me just ask this guy what he's working on, what he's doing, And then I was like, hey, what are you working on? What are you up to? You're like, oh, I'm just putting the pen to the paper, getting some ideas out there, And I was like, well, what's going on with your business? What do you do? And then, I asked you if you needed help with anything related to marketing, whether that be cameras, logos, anything. And you said, yeah, we're looking for somebody that could kind of do something like that. So that's how I kind of got my first interview with you. You really liked who I was. I had done my own, YouTube videos before. I did graphic design for like a clothing brand I was trying to start. And I just really wanted to prove to a company or a business entity at all like I have skills and when you're first trying to get your first shot, it's really hard to land that and execute it.
You I don't know if it was God or whatever, but it was like we were looking for somebody to do what you were doing, and it was like, go to that Starbucks, which I never go to that one specifically.
Yeah,
it's not the one downtown, it's the one by Walmart because it's always cold in there.
Yeah,
right. So I never go to that one. I go there, and then all of a sudden, an outgoing gentleman comes up to me to talk about exactly what we were looking for.
Yeah.
Like, this seems kind of like it's meant to be. Like, we got to at least figure out if this is real or, has some potential. And
and what you say, like, talking about God and stuff like that. And that's kind of what I believe, because I was supposed to get this warehouse job in Whitewater, like 2 years ago. And that was like a nice paying job. It was like $27 an hour. It was only 4 days a week. I'd have Friday, Saturday, and Sunday off. And I passed, all the tests they gave me.
Can you lift a 50-pound box?
Yeah, literally. I passed that. I passed the drug test. I got everything. And then I got a call 2 weeks later saying that I didn't fill out this last part of the application. And then now I can't apply for like a whole another year, which was very weird. And I've never heard of something like that. But apparently there's like this 2-day window where if you don't finish the final steps of the application, you can't apply for like another year.
And that seems like a stupid process.
Yeah, so.
But it brought you
exactly.
Here, so.
I went from there to, I was even door dashing at one point, just trying to figure it out. And then this is literally smack dab in the middle of my academic career. So I was exactly 2 years in. I had just gone on winter break, and I'm like, I don't know if this is going to work out. I really need to make money, but I also need to finish my academic career, So just the way things went ever since then, it just like literally brought me to you, bouncing around different jobs, and it kind of made me desperate enough to like ask, like put myself out there, And I think that's exactly what you're talking about, like everything happens for a reason.
Yeah. Your life brought you to that situation and gave you the goal to go out and ask that question.
Right.
Something that I was doing brought me there, and
right.
It's like I don't know, is that the butterfly effect? But whatever,
Yeah.
It's just all those little paths convening to make something happen. So,
yeah, for sure.
And you've been here for about a year now. Right?
Yeah, coming up on a year. Yeah, in a few months.
Yeah, and it's been awesome. I mean, you've been a leader in getting our name out there, just grassroots, online. You've helped me kind of lean into my creativity,
Yeah.
and so it's been awesome. You know, and this is just the start. So
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
I'm excited for
Yeah.
sure.
So, and for those who don't know, so you're on your last, or going to be coming up in your last semester of college.
Yeah, I'm on my last semester right now, and then after that, I'm ready to hit the
You're
road.
a free man.
Yeah, exactly. Like the chain's coming off
Yeah,
already.
yeah.
For sure. So yeah, let's talk about kind of what you like originally brought me on to do. Like, what did you really? You were looking for somebody to kind of step into a sales role, but also looking for somebody to kind of also just put the business out there in general, right? So
Yeah, I was. So I knew that we needed to do in our business. We do route sales, right? So we try and network with insurance agents and plumbers and property managers, and we need somebody to physically go do the route, shake the hands, give the donuts, give the tchotchkes, right?
Yeah.
We needed somebody to do that, but I also knew that long term it would be wise of us to have like an online marketing strategy, and I knew we couldn't afford both. And I'm like, that's a very specific person, right? Somebody who's talented online and with marketing, and then can also talk and isn't afraid to put themselves out there. And then along came you, right?
Yeah.
And it was like the perfect opportunity. It's like, listen, I want you to explore your creativity because that's what you really are at heart, right? You're a creative.
Yeah.
You've always done that type of stuff. So I want you to be able to explore that part of you, but you also got to help pay for yourself by doing the sales. And it's worked out good. And I don't want to speak for you, but I think even for anybody getting into a career, sales is always going to be part of your life, whether you're selling yourself or you're selling for another business or your own business.
Yeah.
None of what you're learning is going to go to waste, right?
Yeah,
you know?
for sure.
And so we brought you on to do that, and it's been great. I mean, people that never would have known about us are now knowing about us. Our online content is doing good.
Yeah.
You've helped fuel my vision for this podcast, and you know, and so it's been all very good. You know?
Yeah.
Keeps me on my toes.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. I remember there was, I brought up the idea of starting a podcast a long time ago, and kind of, I think you had mentioned it first, and I was like, yeah, like we live in a day and age where you can kind of just make anything happen, and it's better to start something like this earlier on than rather trying to backtrack, and, whether, in 5 years you just keep this thing up, you know what I mean? You never know what it can turn into,
Or you're too, like, I hate when companies get too big that they're so slow to move to things, right?
Yeah.
That's the nice thing about the size that we're at. We're so nimble. I mean, from idea to conception, this is like 45 days, right?
Yeah.
We built the box inside of our shop, found our man Joe over here, and, and started making it happen. And there's power in that, being nimble,
Yeah, for sure. And taking chances too, because a lot of people, business owners even, don't want to put themselves out there. They don't want to be, like you said, the face of the business, or maybe they think it won't work out, or they kind of psych themselves out of it. I think, move boldly and your business will be bold. You know what I mean? I think that kind of speaks for itself. And you kind of, you come at, people and the way you present your business in different angles, like I think that's where business is heading, and I think that's with technology and social media and the way the world works nowadays.
Hit them where they're at, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think that was really, really brilliant.
I like to be the face of the business for my own self accountability, right? It's like we can't get complacent because it's literally got my name on it, right? And my face is literally the brand, and it makes me well aware that we got to build a culture and a team of people that really care, because I don't want somebody to hear about Daleen and then think, oh, there's that jerk Kevin, right? Or whatever, right? You gotta be honest with yourself. And I think that's honestly one of the reasons I wanted to put the name on there. I'm like, it carries some weight to me personally, right?
Yeah,
I want to make sure it's conveying what it should,
Yeah.
So
1000%.
Yeah. So what have you, now that you're somewhat in a career and you're somewhat in college, what have you learned that your schooling has taught you in real life? Because I'm always curious. We had a gentleman on today who went to college for communications and now he's a roofer, right? Have you learned anything that you didn't expect in school that's been applicable in real life?
So there's like two sides to that coin. I learned that in school, it's not really about grades or knowing this sort of information, but it's learning how to separate yourself from everybody else. So when you go to college, there's a bunch of different sort of majors you can, there's a bunch of different routes you can go.
Yeah.
When I first got there, I thought I wanted to be a dentist, You know, like you get out of high school, you kind of think you have an idea of who you want to be, what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go to college and all of a sudden you got 2-hour labs. You know, you're dissecting animals and you're splicing DNA and you're taking exams. And it's like, I just wanted to,
this ain't for me.
You know, no, this isn't for me, you know. And I've always been a really creative person. Like when I was growing up, I got in the Southern Lakes Anthology, which was like children used to create drawings and they could be submitted to like win like awards and stuff like that. And I always, you know, was a finalist every year growing up. So I was like, let me just see, you know, like Whitewater's a business school. What can I do that's creative? And then marketing, like I never did any research on it, but it was everything I like to do.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
creating stuff.
When I
digital.
think of you, I think of marketing.
Yeah.
So it seems fitting.
You
right?
know, but it's like until you go out and really try different things, you never know. So I would say college, not professors teaching me that, but it teaches you like, okay, let's throw you in this pond and kind of see what you like, don't like, and you figure out a lot about yourself. You know, like I think that was the biggest learning curve, was really finding what I like and who I want to be. You know what I mean? And then there's this other side where, you know, like you can be a great test taker, you can have straight A's, and you could be, you know, in a bunch of extracurricular activities. But if you don't have the drive and creativity to like set yourself apart from different people and do things different, and kind of like when you walk into a room, you're kind of like, you just glow. You know what I mean? You can kind of gravitate towards everybody. That's something you really can't teach.
No,
you know?
no, it's either nature or nurture, but it's something that you're not going to learn in a school. You know?
No, yeah, for sure. And I just saw like a lot of people were just taking their tests, going home, going to the bar, you know what I mean? And I was like, I don't really want to just be like everybody else, you know? Like I actually want to like create things and do things and be like, you know, a figure in business somehow, you know what I mean? Not just go work for a corporate company and put in my 20 years and punch. Like that wasn't, you know. And then another thing that I was taught too was like these companies would come in, you know, and you'd give fake interviews, you do mock sales, stuff like that. So these companies would come in and basically like see what you got. You know what I mean?
Part of the marketing program,
yeah,
or in a hiring campaign.
So classes. Okay. So some of my finals were like fake interviews. Okay. So you'd have a Skype interview with a head at, you know, X and Y company, or you'd go in and try to sell a specific product to a bunch of board of directors, you know, and that would be like your final. And I was just like, man, like this really still isn't like what I want to do. You know what I mean? So then I thought like, what could I do for like independent businesses? How could I make my own business? Because I want freedom. I don't want to be like you said, like plugged in, you know what I mean? So that's kind of what I learned the most.
How to set yourself apart.
Yeah. How to set myself apart and how to be different, you know, because I think that's what really, changes like my whole path in my career.
Yeah. I think given the choice, most business owners, if you're looking at hiring somebody, rather than there's certain things where you would need to be an excellent student to prove your worth, but most cases, I'd rather take the person that has most of the skill and all of the personality rather than all of the skill and none of the personality, because you're going to need to meld the teams and customers, and it doesn't fit just to be good in the books. You got to have both. You know? And I think that's important. You know. Yeah. I think most people nowadays are starting to get that right. It's like we've had a shift. We've talked about it a lot today with other guests of, you know, kids going more towards the trades, and it's not as it doesn't have as much of a stigma around it. And I think the other thing is, even if you're not going into the trades, people are understanding that college isn't the only path. It's definitely a tool to help for sure. Right. And it helps show that you're dedicated and have some general baseline intelligence, but there's many other paths to success.
Yeah. A lot of, you know, I thought you just get your degree and you get a job and it pays well.
The job's here. We're good.
Yeah.
Right?
No, and that's not the case. You know, a lot of people graduate and don't even use their degree. You know, I forget what the percentage is, but I'm pretty sure it's more than half.
Yeah.
You know, so especially knowing that, I was like, I really want to work alongside my degree, try to put my impact before I even graduate. That way I can kind of be ahead of, you know, the general person, you know, and just talking to other professors and picking their brains about it. You know, like there was a lot of ex-military guys that went on to be business professors that I talked to. And they kind of said, yeah, just put yourself out there. You never know who you're going to cross paths with. Just be prepared. And the number one thing they said is personality. You know, like you got to just be different. And that's what people gravitate towards.
And it's helped you with your sales too. Like you just going out and doing cold routes can be awkward sometimes.
Yeah,
You just got to accept the fact that, hey, listen, we're all people.
Yeah.
Whatever, right? It's not that big of a deal. You can go in there, you can make that introduction. Something great might happen of it, or it might go really bad. And what the definition of really bad is they just tell you to not come back, or they say no.
Yeah.
Not the end of the world, right?
Yeah,
and so
for sure.
It's not that big of a deal. You can just push yourself past it and go forward,
Yeah. Learning to, take people's guard down. You know what I mean? Just talk to them like they're regular people. How was your day? What are you going through? You know what I mean? There's been times on sales routes where this lady wasn't having the best week or best month, or maybe she just got divorced, So instead of going in there and just pitching the business, you're trying to learn the personnel and learn, the people behind the scenes, how they're actually functioning, and kind of dip into their life a little bit.
You're building a relationship. You're not pushing a product, right?
Right. Yeah.
You're not over there just shoving product down somebody's throat.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. That's good. What was your childhood like growing up?
So I grew up in Elkhorn. I'm very local to here. So I grew up in Elkhorn. I went to, I believe, kindergarten in Elkhorn. And then I went to Lake Geneva through first grade all the way to high school.
Okay.
So
you
I
graduated from Badger,
Yeah,
right?
I graduated from Badger. And I had a really good childhood. I think I always liked artwork. I always liked movies. My grandpa got me really into movies. Obviously, like every kid loves WWE, stuff like that,
Now you're a big UFC guy.
Yeah, now I'm a big UFC guy. So I think I always had an interest in clothing and like superheroes. So super like pop culture, really, piqued my interest as a kid. And I think that growing up in Lake Geneva, for some reason, a lot of the people in Lake Geneva, I feel like are really creative, or they maybe have an interest for art. I don't know if it's because the scenery, like the lake being there, and kind of like you can just walk all around downtown and just kind of the scenery there. But I think that school system really like lets you be who you want to be. They have a bunch of great art classes, a bunch of great different things you can do. If you want to do the trades, there's autos and woods and metals and, welding and stuff like that. So I think it was a good academic situation to kind of see who you are and, kind of decide what you really want to do.
I think a lot of the schools here, like when I was going to school in Florida, it was all based on their standardized tests, like public schools at least. So if you didn't do good on the public test, they wouldn't get their funding, blah, blah, blah. So you never learned life skills. They're just like cramming the public test down your throat so that you do good on it and they get their funding.
Wow.
And here, you don't get that vibe. It's like you're a small town, right? So a teacher cares about you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you can develop yourself more as a person than just a student.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's also, let's be honest, our town, though as beautiful, is very tiny, right? It's only a few thousand people. In
it's very tiny and it's very compact, and it's filled with a lot of different people. And you get a lot of tourist attractions, so it's a lot of influx of people.
The summertime surge.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's also really good too. You get diverse cultures, and you kind of pick up on things you wouldn't have, otherwise.
Yeah, you see a lot growing up in this area.
Yeah. And I think that's about sums it up. I did football my whole high school career. I did wrestling when I was a little kid.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I still have friends from wrestling, but I think that also was like a big teaching moment in my life where like if you work hard at something, like you're gonna see the results. You know what I mean? You're gonna win those tournaments. But I remember there was times I didn't want to wrestle anymore, and I was just going out there and just getting beat up. So it's like you have to realize like what's for you, what's not for you, and if you're gonna do something, like do it 100%.
Have you ever heard the story about when I got beat up by a girl?
I think I have. I think Colin or somebody told me about that.
I used to be big into grappling when I lived in Florida. There's all sorts of gyms out there, and I was like passionate about it. I've never been coordinated, but I was good at martial arts, generally speaking.
Oh, okay.
Generally. And I got thrown into this competition. My coach was like, you should really do this. Well, there's a lot of kids going on there, and I must have fallen off the radar of my coach. So I kind of just was like walking through the steps. Somehow I got signed up for the wrong class, and in grappling it was supposed to be just like point based. So if you get position, you get a point.
Right.
And that was all I had been training for, no submissions or anything like that. I go in, 10 seconds into round 1, I get just totally demolished. She just chokes me out. And then I lose that fight. The next fight, I go in, some wrestler kid, strong as an ox, just takes me and just throws me to the ground.
Oh, no.
I get up, I'm like, what the fuck just happened? Like,
yeah, for sure.
That taught me, I'm like, okay, you gotta know your limitations.
Yeah,
sometimes.
no, for sure. I've definitely lost to a girl in wrestling.
Yeah. It's a humbling experience.
Yeah, for sure.
Respect.
Yeah. They just worked harder, and you didn't.
Yeah.
Or maybe you underestimated them.
Or maybe your coach put you in the wrong division.
Yeah, they signed off on the wrong documents.
My brother and I still, my parents were out of town. My brother took me to that one, and we still get a good laugh out of that every time we can.
That's good. It builds character.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. And you played football throughout all of high school?
Yeah, I actually didn't play my senior year after COVID hit. I realized that I obviously wasn't going to the NFL. I'm not 6'4", 250. So I was like, let me, work, save up some money before I go to college. That way I can pay for stuff like that.
Otherwise, it takes up so much time, right?
Yeah. And, it's like a lot of people pursue sports and they think that they're going to get an offer and they don't. You know what I mean? And then they're kind of stuck like, what do I really want to do? You know what I mean? So I quit that senior year and I really focused on like what school I want to go to, what I want to do, how do I break out of the regular 9-to-5 situation?
What was high school like with COVID? Because I was not in school at the time.
Oh my God. It was basically a joke.
Yeah.
So like as soon as COVID hit, so after COVID, we all had like assignments and like half a year left, right? But the rules were, at least for Lake Geneva, if you do one assignment and you get an A on that assignment, you don't have to do any more work for the rest of the year. So your grade stays at an A and you don't have to do anything.
It was just like a forgiveness for the times,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, for sure. So I did one assignment for each class. I got an A and I didn't do anything after that first week.
I don't know why anybody would not do that. Like, there's no motivation to not do that, right?
And the world at that time, everyone thought it was like coming to an end.
Yeah, it was a weird time.
Yeah, so, I mean, they were pretty forgiving. You had some teachers that would literally email you like, hey, you have like 45 missing assignments. You know what I mean? But it didn't mean anything.
Yeah. Like, I'm sorry, I got my A, I'm out.
Yeah. And then after that, my last year was...
so that was your junior year?
That was my junior year.
Okay.
And then the start of my senior year, I did hybrid. So after COVID, they got a lot more lenient with like online, half in school, or full online. And I did half online, half in class. And even that still, there was a lot of lenience, But I noticed going back into school, nobody took it serious anymore. Like school wasn't looked at like this like major thing. I don't know if it was because everybody was like surrounded by their family. Or maybe their parents got in their ear about something, but nobody really took school like this mandatory thing. You know what I mean?
It was a weird time psychologically, right? It was just like,
so
much happened in that 9 months.
For sure.
Of that span. It was like,
yeah,
what is the world?
Yeah, I literally just didn't take school as serious anymore. And after that scare, I realized like, that's not really what matters. You know what I mean? Like to a degree it does, but what really matters is like family time and kind of personal development and, just like real stuff, not getting an A on a math exam. I'm going to forget what I did 2 years later,
Yeah. I couldn't remember a single book we read or anything like
that.
So.
No.
And also, I'm coming up on my 10-year reunion
oh my God.
This next year.
You reached unk status. How does it feel? Yeah.
Yeah. That's
I'll be there in no time. Time's flying.
It does fly. It feels like that was only a few years ago.
Yeah. High school felt like so long, those 4 years. And now I'm in college and it feels like half that.
Well, you're on your last semester and this first one went by quick.
Oh, super fast. The more you're doing, the more time flies. If you don't do anything and you're just at home playing video games, time moves real slow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I felt that during COVID.
Yeah.
For
sure.
Everybody did. Yeah. You're looking down, you're like, oh my God, I gained 30 pounds. Oh my God.
That was the time. So we started the business right during COVID and it was so weird going into people's houses. You'd be doing one of these, you're like, are we shaking? Are we not shaking? With elbows?
Yeah.
Mask, no mask? Yeah. Like there's so many awkward,
Do you remember like going to fast food restaurants and they'd have you put like the money or the card in like a little pencil case holder?
Yep.
And then they take it. Yep. You know what I mean? Like, oh my God, what is going on? Times are getting rough.
I just remember it was just going to customers' houses was weird. And then just being out in public, like when it first happened was so goofy,
Yeah.
Just a real perspective change.
Yeah.
I was like on a plane right as the world was shutting down. I was coming back from Florida and it was me and my buddies were on a spring break trip and we just had we We were not on our phones, had no idea what was going on. And we're like, get on the plane. There's like a lot of people wearing masks. And you see people, we've seen people at airports with masks on.
Yeah.
What's going on? We get in the car and we kind of start like rechecking into the world. Like, there's something real going on here.
What are we
Fast
doing?
forward 72 hours later, we didn't see each other for like 3 months. It was like, whoa, that was.
Yeah. I remember having to like sneak out of the house and like, go like just in like park my car next to my friend's car and just talk to each other from our cars.
Yeah.
Like it was just so weird.
Yeah.
Like my mom didn't want me going outside. I was like, Mom, I'm gonna go for a run. She's like, no, you're gonna get it. She's like, it's in the air. I'm like, dude, we're not boarding up the windows. Come on.
It felt like the movie Contagion. Have you seen that? With
Yes.
Matt Damon?
And it came out right around.
No, I think that was before. It just got repopularized.
Oh, I'm talking about Parasite. Did you?
No, I haven't seen that one.
Oh my God, it's so good. But that came out right around COVID, and that was
just fueling the fire.
Yeah, it was crazy for sure.
But I think most people, if you came out ahead, you're stronger for it. You went through and learned a lot of stuff, you know? And
woke a lot of people up.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
It was a weird time to start a business. It was like,
oh yeah.
I remember my dad and I decided we're like, all right, we're gonna do it. And then like literally the week we placed our order for our equipment and everything like that, the world shut down. I'm like, oh my God, there goes all our money.
You gotta do those PPP loans.
We're doing anything we could to get business. We're painting piers and doing all sorts of stuff that has no bearing on restoration. But you find your way through it.
For sure.
You're better off for it.
Yeah,
so.
and then once you got your feet under you, makes you even more ambitious.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
like
or less scared. You're like, well, if we could do that, then we can.
Exactly.
Do it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So for people who don't know, you do a lot of routes for us, right?
Yeah.
So you go and you stop in at a bunch of different businesses and talk to a bunch of different people.
Yeah, I spread the word.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what you do. What is some of the lessons you've learned from that, and then maybe shed some light on some good examples of a stop, and maybe some ones that are just awkward?
Yeah.
Bad.
So I would say those kind of taught me how to talk to people. Like I mentioned before, asking people how their day was, just treating them like a person, you know what I mean? Like a hardworking people that they are. It taught me that everybody's going through stuff differently. Everybody has, their own trials and tribulations that they carry with them to the office every day. And it kind of taught me to like take it slow, not go in here and, not be so nervous and like feel like I got to really, make a good conversation this one time. Like I'm going to be back. You know what I mean? It just taught me how to really break people down and get them to want to talk to me, like start interesting conversations besides work, ask them how their kids are, what their background is, how did they get, into this business, and just really kind of generate conversations and be more friendly, not be so standoffish and kind of embarrassed or like weird. What I mean?
Not in your head that it's like a sales route. It's like, I'm just here to talk, right?
No, for sure. It was definitely rough at first, but as you go, you learn how to, just address people and learn who to talk to and learn what to bring up and just learn how to package the business, how to present it to people, not just like, oh yeah, we're the guys that clean up the mold, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you learn how to present you and the business,
And you're in a unique position too, because when you're going out, you're talking to people who know what restoration is. A lot of people who are just the average day consumer doesn't know what we do because hopefully they don't experience what we have to offer.
Right.
But you're talking to people who know what we do and know all of our competition.
Yeah.
So you're in a unique position where you got to really learn how to phrase us because we're a smaller guy, right? And we're relatively new. So you got to learn how to really sell to our strengths. And it's a hard conversation sometimes.
Yeah,
you know
for
what
sure.
I mean? To like, oh yeah, we get it. You guys are like the the green trucks or the yellow trucks or the black trucks or the
They think of you as all the same.
Yeah,
they really do.
And that's where you come in and you're powerful as you put a face and a personality and a caringness to the company.
I give texture to the company. Yeah, for sure.
And that's important.
Yeah, that's what sets you apart.
What's some awkward interactions? Have you ever had ones that are just like turn your stomach? They're awkward.
Yeah. So I walked into an office and this lady mistook me for a person that actually works with them. And he went to my high school actually.
Okay.
So I walked in and I was kind of addressing myself like, hey, I'm back. How's it going? What are you guys working on? Could we get a meeting scheduled next month? And she's like, oh yeah, this is our photographer and filmer. He does all of our advertising.
Which is funny because that's what you also do.
Yeah, it is what I also do. And she had a new employee. So
Lord.
she was giving an interview and addressed me as one of her employees, and I was like, wait, like I'm not that guy.
Yeah.
Like I'm with Daleen Restoration. I came in a few weeks ago, and she just like her jaw dropped, and she was like, oh my God, now's not the best time. Could you please come back in a few weeks? Blah blah blah. I was like, yeah, fine, don't worry about it. You know, so the person she was interviewing probably was like, oh, I'm going to be forgotten about too now. Like, she's not even going to know who I am.
No.
Yeah, that was pretty bad. Another one, I walked in and a desk lady was like crying on the phone. This was, I think they had just started raising all the rates.
So somebody's just chewing it out.
So they were just like, a lot of these people that work in these offices are really going through it.
They're warriors, man. I mean, they're the shit filter for all the bad stuff that comes into
Yeah. I mean, they're getting bitched at on the phone. A lot of them are, they think, whether it be a State Farm, American Family, or whatever insurance company, they think that the policyholders think that they have this almighty button that can change the rates and that they are the ones enforcing all these policies, and they're just the messenger. I remember this lady, she was really going through it. She was crying. I think she had just had her father who had passed away or something like that, and she was just having a bad day.
Now she gets a lady who's screaming at her.
Yeah, and I think that was like, that kind of like opened my eyes a little bit, like, whoa, like, people are going through stuff, and even though I'm just coming in here through as like a sales route, I could still like offer my attention and kind of dive deeper, be a person that they can talk to as well, even though I'm there to talk. I love coming in and having them talk to me, and, tell me about their day and stuff like that,
You get the people that are like, they're looking for that source of venting.
Yeah,
Like, man,
for sure.
Everybody here all day, we're all in a sounding board of just the same stuff. It's like, it's nice to have some person just come rant to,
Yeah, there's a lot of people out there going through it, man.
Well, we've been in some meetings before where the people are just like, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened. It's like, man, you need somebody to talk to.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of these people are cooped up.
Yeah,
you know, and they're just on the phone staring at a screen.
Especially
all day.
in our fun world of insurance, right? They get claims and they get bad days for their customers. And,
yeah.
What's been something you've been surprised to learn about this industry? Because you've came in and we ran you through a crash course, right? You're coming on jobs with us. We're teaching you about this big, weird industry we're in.
Yeah. A few interesting things. I would say the payment process is a weird one. We do a lot of the work beforehand before actually seeing any dollar amount. That's usually weeks, even sometimes even months after the fact. That kind of took me back. You know what I mean? Like, oh, we're gonna do the work for free for the first 2 months. You know what I mean? But also, I think kind of you can see like mold and water damage one day, but then somebody might have a fire and they might have lost, an animal or a sentimental, sentimental picture or jacket or something like that.
Their whole house.
Yeah, their whole house. Yeah, I think it's kind of like it's more serious than I thought, especially with mold. Like people can get MRSA and people can get really sick from that. So I think the whole severity of restoration was a lot more serious than I originally thought.
Yeah.
I thought it was like, oh, like, this pipe burst and my house flood.
Yeah. And some of them are like some people are just built different. Some people, that little flood may be, generally speaking, as our jobs go, really minor. Might be the worst day that person's ever had, right? It's the worst thing that they've ever experienced, and it's just like you got to be sympathetic to it and understand,
Yeah.
Because we as professionals in the business, we see this every day, so it's like you get a little callous to it, and sometimes you got to step back and be like,
yeah,
okay, now I understand why she's sad. This is where her son's bedroom is, or all of her family pictures, or whatever, and you got to just take a beat and slow down,
Yeah.
Especially on fires, like we're doing a fire for an elderly couple right now, and just having to walk them through the steps, and it's a lot. Right, there's a lot of paperwork and insurance stuff, and who does this and who does that, and where's all my belongings going?
Yeah,
and,
they're staying in a motel.
It's a lot, and so just trying to make sure you take a beat with those people is important, rather than you're not prescribing a prescription. You're more of a psychiatrist, right? You're like,
right,
here's how we're gonna do,
Yeah, it's a lot more personal than I thought too.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. I would say those two for sure.
Yeah. The getting paid after the work is always fun.
Yeah. That one really took me by surprise. For sure.
Yeah. So you were part of the driving force for us wanting to do a podcast.
Yeah.
What do you like about the form of podcasts? I know we both listened to a lot of them.
Yeah.
And that was kind of a mutual thing we wanted to do.
For sure. I like the fact that it's independent media. I liked that you can kind of listen to different podcasts for different things,
Mhm.
you know, whether it be like information or whether you just want to sit back and laugh or
Mhm.
whether you like this person's personality
Mhm.
and maybe it's like a cross between two different worlds, like maybe it's an actor and a psychiatrist or
Mhm.
maybe it's a garbage man and a comedian.
Mhm.
You know, I like the fact that it's people just having regular conversations and not like the same corporate structure of media
Mhm.
where it's like either you watch television, the news, or a movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or listen to music even.
Yeah.
You know, I think this is different and it's going to be even bigger in the next 10 years than it ever was.
Mhm.
And I think this is going to override the current corporate structure, you
Mhm.
know, independent media in specific. Because people like to listen to other regular people.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Because even if somebody has, you know, not that much going on in their personal life, they like listening to people that are either the same, going through worse, going through better. You know, they can kind of relate to that.
Yeah.
It's hard to relate to news.
Yeah, you're
you
some
know?
talking head figure, and I'm doing this.
And I have a suit, and I have
Yeah.
on spray tan, and you know, it's hard to really relate to that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I like the fact that it's relatable.
And it can reach everybody, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Like think about us. We're a small business, and we're going to be able to put this out on a bunch of different platforms and reach a bunch of different people. And back in the day, this would have been so cost heavy.
Yeah.
Nobody would ever been able to do it. And now we're
Yeah.
blessed to be in this time for relatively cheap. We can produce a pretty high quality show.
Yeah.
You know.
And there was a lot of doubt, you know. I think like even Tucker Carlson said like he was like, "Oh, that MMA guy Joe Rogan,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
not going to work out."
Yeah.
You know, and then he did a full 180.
Yeah.
He's like, you know, he
Changed media.
changed
right?
media wholly, you know.
Yeah.
And I think people underestimated the power of like having your own voice, having your own show, having your own thing,
Mhm.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I just like the fact that it's changing the current structure for the better, I think.
Yeah.
You know.
And getting people more information.
Yeah, for sure.
You've been instrumental in kind of changing our vision for how we engage with people online in our business.
Mm-hmm.
What are some things you'd like to see other business owners of like our size, like small family business, do to try and help them? I know your long-term goal, you want to eventually help people with their sales and marketing. So
Yeah.
what's your prescription for some businesses? How can they do better on online?
I would just say taking quality video or pictures even,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? Really, so I always tell this to you. So for people who don't know what you are, who you are, what you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
that little picture, that little video or that logo or
Mm-hmm.
the clothing you're wearing might be the only thing that gives them insight to who you are.
Mm-hmm.
So the better quality of those things, the higher they think of your business.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, you like a lot of people have banging businesses, but they don't have a great website,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe they don't post on social media,
Mm-hmm.
or they don't do newsletters. They don't really get their stuff like out there or promote themselves. It's
Mm-hmm.
kind of all word of mouth. And I mean, that, you know, that still works. You know what I mean? Your work is going to speak for itself.
Yeah.
But it's all about the packaging.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like you know, like a McDonald's Happy Meal.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? It's so iconic and it's
Mhm.
so simple, and it's like it creates this extra texture to your business that you wouldn't have had otherwise.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You know, the work needs to be there, but if nobody knows about you, then you never have the opportunity.
Right.
You know, or if your work has already been there and people know about you and you get complacent and you don't change with the times,
Right.
any business can fail. No
Yeah.
matter how big you are, right? You
Yeah.
gotta keep reiterating.
Yeah.
You know?
And people need to kind of be more personal. You know what I mean? Like you don't need to be this entity that doesn't have, you know, a voice or a specific set of values, or, you know, everyone just tends to be like, they don't really put personality into their online presence. They kind of just show their work, display their work, and
Yeah.
that's about it.
Yeah,
you know?
that's actually it's good that you brought that up, because what I told you when we started working together, I was like, every restoration company you see, they're gonna post pictures of their mold containment. Cool. Who gives a
Right.
shit, right?
Yeah, the
How
bare
much
bones.
equipment they have, right? If their trucks have letters on them, it's like, I don't want to do that. What I want to do is convey a feeling, right? Like people should
Trust.
know me. They should know the guys. They should know that we care. Because it doesn't, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter how much equipment you have. I can go rent more. Doesn't, you know,
Right.
what type of plastic we're using to build stupid stuff. That doesn't matter. What people want to know is that you're there for them. And, you know, you've done a good job at helping us get that message out.
Yeah.
You know, because nobody cares about that stuff.
No, you know, and that's all stuff that in the industry people care about. But I mean, how are you going to explain to a 10-year-old what you do?
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? How are they going to get it?
Yeah.
How are they going to picture it? You
Yeah,
know what
or
I mean?
even a customer who's calling us about it, really they don't care about this stuff. They just want to know if if you have the values to take care of them, right? And it's because all the other stuff, you can figure your way out through it.
Right.
Like when we're starting, do we have all the equipment in the world? No. Do we have to rent stuff? Yeah. But that's being an entrepreneur. You just figure out a way to do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's just the nature of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, just being a good person. And then what you're good at is, getting that message out there, figuring out how to do that.
Right. Yeah. How to like dumb it down, but not dilute the message. Just make it simpler for people to digest.
Yep.
Yeah.
So your advice, high quality content and keeping a face with the business.
Yeah. Be yourself. Don't be afraid to put personality into your work and into your business. I think that's like what I said earlier about a person. It separates yourself as a business too. Because you're a restoration company, but you wanted to start a podcast. And people might think that's kind of weird that those two don't mix. You know what I mean? You can kind of do anything. I think you can make anything work with the right message and the right people. The right personality.
Guests,
yeah,
right? Yeah,
anything. Yeah. So I think just be yourself and be confident in yourself too.
Very good.
Yeah.
Where do you see yourself going in the future? Like, I know you said you wanted to start your own marketing firm. So what does that look like? Or what is,
I really want to be at the center of a bunch of family-owned businesses like yourself, whether that be clothing or logos or simply giving ideas or input, websites, anything digital marketing related, even sales. I really want to be the complete package for somebody that has great work ethic, but they don't know how to really put themselves out there. I kind of want to like build a road for them to excel. You know what I mean? And not really take over the business, but just be a helping hand in launching them to a new level that they didn't know how to get to otherwise.
You're like a consultant who almost has the boots on the ground, though, to do what they're consulting upon.
Do the logos, do the photo editing, go out there and get some videos, or, how do I build a list of clientele? How do I get, good Google reviews or anything?
That's, I guess that's what's interesting about marketing is as a person who would want to start a marketing firm, you yourself are an entrepreneur, but you're passionate about helping other entrepreneurs or anybody in business. What makes you want to help other business owners, not just do it where to say, well, I want to start a marketing firm because I like taking photos, right? Like what drives you to want to help those people?
I would say there's just a lot of missed potential out there. And even with myself, I feel like everybody, like I always picture myself at 50 and 40. And I never wanted to look back and be like, wow, I should have done that. I should have done this more. I should have put myself out there more. I had a dream, but then I kind of let it slide because I had this thing that's making me money going on.
Yeah, maybe or fear of it.
Yeah, or maybe I put my dreams on the back burner. You know what I mean? I think a lot of people have a lot of really good ideas and have good businesses and great potential, but they really just don't take the extra step or they don't know how to, or maybe they're scared to.
They just get stuck in the planning phase.
Yeah, or just planning or even just daydreaming. Everybody out there listening, I'm sure, has an idea or a goal or a fantasy of themselves doing something different than what they're doing now. And it all starts with an idea, but then what follows after that? A lot of people don't know how to do that. Or maybe they're starting and they're kind of losing traction. They're losing inspiration.
So you want to be that fuel on the fire to keep them going? Yeah, if anything that you've really helped me with is just kind of making sure that I feel okay expressing the ideas that I want to do, right? It's like, you're a good sounding board for ideas because if I have a shitty one, you'll tell me it's a bad idea. But, most of the ideas, if I'm excited about them, you're like, yeah, you should do that. Yeah. You should do this. You should do that, And you've came up with some good ideas. Like one you came up with was Inspired Cafe in Lake Geneva.
Yeah.
You're like, we should go out there. We should buy everybody a cup of coffee and just meet the people in our community.
Yeah.
And such a creative idea. And it turned out amazing. We met, obviously they have great employees and they stand for a great mission, but we met a lot of community members and it was just like, I'm like, that's amazing, right?
Yeah.
And just, you keep doing that.
Yeah.
And if you could do that for us and other people, it'd be awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I well said, yeah.
Yeah. That was kudos to you on that one. That was a cool idea.
Yeah, that was awesome. Meet a bunch of local people and just really just getting to put yourself out there in the local community. You know what I mean? And also like making somebody's day. You know what I mean? Like a cup of coffee can make somebody's whole
if
week.
somebody's having a bad day and somebody does something like that, you never know the the repercussions that could come from it.
Yeah.
It also goes on the same negative. You try not to be a bad person because you never know what somebody's going through. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's got their days, but
Right.
if you could just generally on the whole be a good person, it can go a long way.
For sure. Yeah, 1,000%.
Yeah.
Positive energy comes right back.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're putting it out there, it's going to come back sooner or later.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, you got anything else you want to talk about?
Let me think here. Before I came on, what did you see? Because I don't think you probably thought about any of this before I came on. Like, you didn't see, obviously, us sitting down together. You know what I mean?
For sales and marketing, you mean? Just
anything, like your business as a whole. You know what I mean? Like, what path do you think you were on before I came on?
I was looking to do something where we could, honestly, the reason for a person in your role, in my opinion, was to lower the cost of acquisition of our customers. What a lot of people don't understand about our industry is like the paid searches for this business are so expensive. There's services out there where you can pay $900, $1,500 for a single phone call. And it's not guaranteed that phone call will convert to a lead. And rather than rely on that, I'm like, listen, people should know what we do. And I was a little different. Like a lot of people that start in, loosely is this a trade, right? But a lot of people that start in the trades, they started as the person doing the work.
Yeah.
They built up a reputation as somebody who does the work very well, and then they get into it. I was the opposite. I didn't know shit about this industry.
Yeah.
Right? One day I was like, this is kind of cool. I went and just took a bunch of classes, just did deep dives in the industry, and I started the business. And then what I needed to do was do the reverse. I needed to then push our name out there and let people know exactly what we needed to do.
Yeah.
So I was looking for a way to do that, and then when I found you, I'm like, this is perfect. You can talk to people and you can get our name out there. But life works in mysterious ways, and whether I may have gone another year or two without even filling that position, or it may, however life works out, but it worked out pretty good so far.
Yeah, for sure.
But that was honestly the goal is just long-term investment in acquiring customers, because you literally, when you first started working, we had some of these services on. You could spend, it's gross how much you could spend on phone calls.
Yeah.
Now, if you're good on the phone, you can convert them and they can be profitable. But if you're not, you're burning money like no other doing those campaigns. And I'm like, it just doesn't feel right. I'd rather get a customer that wants to work with us, not somebody who just called the first number on Google. Because the other side of it is they call the first number on Google, you answer. If they don't like your answer, they have no problem hanging up and calling the next guy. Right. Whereas I've had customers now that once they've gotten to know us, I've told them when we have surge work, I'm like, I'm sorry, but I can't get to you till tomorrow. And they're like, it's okay. We want to wait. We want to work with you. And that's like, for somebody going through an emergency, that's like an amazing thing to hear. Yeah. Like, no, we trust you. This person knows you. They said you do great work. And that's more motivation than anything when you hear something like that, So long-winded way of saying, I think we would have eventually made it there, but I'm glad that we went on the route that we did.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
another question I have is, you asked me what I think I'll be in 10 years, what I'll be doing. What do you think you'll be doing in 10 years? Where do you see yourself?
That's a good question. I'm kind of thinking this year at some point I'd like to go take a weekend away from everybody and go think about that and get out of the day-to-day, like just get rid of my phone, honestly. Give me a piece of paper and a hotel somewhere, and I'm just going to go figure out what I want to do. Because I've never actually sat down and thought of that, what my 10-year plan was. I know that I'm passionate about building businesses because I like developing people and procedures and becoming more and more efficient at things. So I think whatever I do will be in some form of business. But my main lens I look at it through is I want to be a happy person. I want to have a successful business, but also successful relationships and family, right? It's like, when I first started the business, I would push so hard that I was becoming a bad friend or a bad boyfriend or a bad son, whatever, right? You put so much energy into it that you neglect everything else. And I realized as I matured a little bit, I'm like, it's not worth it. Yeah. So what if I'm the best at this industry? If my life is miserable, what the hell am I doing it for?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's my overarching goal, is be a good person, be a good leader, and take care of the people that work for me, right? I love being able to provide people a place that they feel comfortable to come work and they can make a good living,
Wow.
So, but I don't know the brass tacks of it.
Yeah.
How many locations will we have? What industry will I be serving? Don't know. That's the overarching goal.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good one to have. I like that. I think not a lot of people think about that.
Yeah.
They think about, how am I gonna, put my kids through college, or how am I gonna set up my future generation? You know what I mean? Not like, how am I gonna be happy?
I think it'll come. It comes in time with just pushing for the right goals. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was telling the last guest we had on, like, my dream of financial goals wise is just enough so it's not a worry. I don't need to be living in complete excess. But if I don't have to worry about the bills, or if I got sick, or if I want to go out to dinner at some nice restaurant or go on vacation, it'd be nice just not to have to worry. I don't need crazy amounts of money.
Less stress.
Just there's enough things to stress about in life. If that's not one of them, that would be awesome, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Not there yet, but we'll get there.
Yeah. Preach, man.
Yeah. So
yeah. Other than that, I got nothing else.
Okay. Well, we'll end it here.
Yeah.
Thank you for all you do. You're instrumental in our business.
Thank you.
What you've done has been awesome, and I'm just up and keep going.
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
To the moon, Daleen to the moon. Yes,
I like
sir.
it.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Peace out, everybody.
All right, folks. That's all the time we had for this episode. We're gonna end it here, and hopefully catch you on the next one.